Want to get Capone? Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue. That's the Chicago way. And that's how you get Capone.
Hello everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you continuing our movie review series covering 10 out of 10 movies, and in this edition we have one of the all-time great movies, the magnificent gangster classic, The Untouchables. Released in June 2nd, 1987, it has a truly heavyweight cast starring Kevin Costner, Andy Garcia, Charles Martin Smith, Robert De Niro and the sadly late departed Sean Connery, and it was directed by acclaimed director Brian De Palma. The story is that we are set in 1930s Chicago during the Prohibition era. Many criminal and bootleg gangs are profiting with the illegal selling of alcohol, and at the height of this criminal activity stands Al Capone, as exhibited very much in the film's opening scene. And entering the fray we have Federal Agent Elliot Ness, set the assignment of apprehending Capone. Despite stating his clear intentions, Ness finds himself mocked and ridiculed by much of the press and police unit. We see this in the opening sequences where he attempts a liquor raid and he completely makes a huge mistake by getting the wrong location. After becoming increasingly frustrated at his non-progress, Ness finally finds a useful ally in the aging beat cop Jimmy Malone, who is more aware of the crime and corruption but has stayed away from it. He then later decides to help Ness, outlining the corrupt forces within the city, helping him recruit members to take down Capone and showing him where all of the liquor is located. Over time, Ness's team become far more successful in damaging Capone's organisation, attaining the infamous nickname The Untouchables. Capone of course gets angered by Ness's constant intervention and takes action to strike back against the team, who soon find themselves fighting for their lives, asking themselves how far they are willing to go in order to take down Capone. Now when we talk about The Untouchables, we really are talking about a movie that is pitch perfect in all departments, from the story, music, direction, editing, acting and pace. Everything just feels perfectly executed, supremely handled, and perhaps the best compliment I can emphasize is balance. We get just the right amount of plot, of characterization, dramatic weight and emotion. We get all of those euphoric levels of action and compelling storyline to keep you invested all the way from start to finish. It all results in a comprehensive and elite piece of all-round mainstream movie entertainment, and very much like the classic western Tombstone, it takes Elliot Ness and gives him far more of this mythological hero status throughout the film, and I think that's fantastic, and this is what partly makes the film so watchable. It is yet again another masterpiece in the great movie repertoire of Brian De Palma, who has directed some exceptional and iconic movies. We talk about recently the iconic masterpiece of Scarface from 1983, later the harrowing Vietnam War drama Casualties of War in 1989, and the massively underrated gangster classic Carlito's Way in 1993. And you can locate reviews of all three of these movies within my channel. Now The Untouchables is truly a trademark Brian De Palma movie. He brings all of his stylish direction and techniques, which has taken a lot of inspiration from Alfred Hitchcock, where he shoots scenes at certain angles, he pans away at certain overhead shots, he uses a lot of tracking POV shots where we follow certain characters from behind, where the action is seemingly going nowhere to begin with, but all of a sudden there develops a great amount of suspense and tension, and then we get the maximum impact at the end of the sequence. And we see De Palma's skilled direction transfer right throughout the magnificent scenes of the movie. This includes The Untouchables first riding out on horseback as a unit to intercept a liquor shipment, when riding on horseback really presenting a team of crusading heroes striving out to exhibit justice, adding again to that much more of that mythological aspect of the team, which I always love as a concept. Is a very inspirational moment. We're seeing these crusading heroes striving out to defeat crime. We have the interrogation scene shortly after, where the team have attained the famous ledger of Capone's businesses, and after struggling to get the required information, Malone takes a dead body, shooting it in the mouth. And I love this scene so much, the way we zoom in between each people as they're watching Malone, and I love the setup of all the tension, and the music and the sequence is fantastic direction overall. We get that later great tracking shot of a thug infiltration Malone's house. Again, such trademark direction in terms of that POV shot, watching him walking in the street and tracking Malone down. Fantastic direction. We get the chase encounter between Elliot Ness and Frank Nitti 3/4 of the way through the movie amongst the rooftops, and I love so much that close-up of Ness's face where he points the gun downwards and where you can really see that inner wrestling within himself and his conscience as to whether to pull the trigger or not. Again, fantastic direction. And then we get the centerpiece sequence pointed out by so many critics of this movie, which is of course the stairway shootout scene. It's a spellbinding slow motion sequence as we see cops and gangsters shooting at each other whilst a baby is in the pram sliding down the staircase. So suspenseful and so tense, and a true example of peak movie making and direction from Brian De Palma. Now, I mentioned before about the casting, and we truly have an elite ensemble of incredible actors, all of whom contribute to the movie with amazing performances. Kevin Costner as Elliot Ness is that determined leading crusader, full of integrity and belief in upholding the law. Later on, really finds himself struggling to find out where the line is in terms of becoming a policeman and becoming a criminal. How far does he go in order to attain and take down Capone? He remarks 3/4 of the way through that he's had to become the very thing that he is standing up against, showing again that inner conflict between himself, and Costner fully conveys that conviction in the character, but there's still enough empathy, particularly in the early parts of the movie where we see Ness struggling to make an impact, and the scenes with his wife and daughter just giving him very much of a humanity and a vulnerability as well. And it's very much that all classic, all American hero that Costner is so suited to play. Untouchables, of course, was the start of Costner's major rise to superstardom, which continued with the likes of Bull Durham, Field of Dreams, the Oscar multi-winning Dances with Wolves, JFK, and huge blockbusters such as Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and The Bodyguard. And here, as Elliot Ness, it's a truly great performance by Kevin Costner, transferring so much that main protagonist throughout the movie. Andy Garcia is very good as the sharpshooting George Stone, the fresh new recruit from the police academy. I love the opening scene that he has with Malone, who tests his resolve by racially abusing him, and Stone holds him together at gunpoint, proving very much that he has the balls to take on the job. Charles Martin Smith is an extremely likeable presence as Oscar Wallace, the first member of Ness's team, who initially is very underestimated as an accountant, but proves to be very integral in attaining the ledger which exposes Capone's tax evasion. We have so many funny scenes when Wallace is constantly referencing back to the fact that Capone hasn't filed tax returns and he's being dismissed to begin with, and of course that's very much ironic because that's the ultimate way that they bring down Capone. I also love Wallace's scene during the interception of the liquor shipment where he charges forward to take down the gangster when he runs out of ammo, and he's such a nice contrast to the overall team dynamic. So a very good performance from Charles Martin Smith as Oscar Wallace. And then of course we concentrate on the two acting legends of the movie, starting with Robert De Niro's Al Capone. As from the opening scene, we see Capone presented as much more of a media celebrity, mesmerizing journalist with his charisma and personality. I love all of his quotes and his statements made throughout the film, and despite his charm, there is of course an underlying psychopath that presents a constant tension whenever he's on screen. This is very much emphasised in the film's opening when the barber cuts him shaving, and then we get that long pose, and then Capone composes himself as well. And then we get that classic scene. We all know what we're talking about here, the enthusiasm scene where Capone has all of his members at a dinner table and he tells a story about baseball and the importance of teamwork, and he slowly walks around each member with a baseball bat, slowly telling them about the lessons of teamwork and how there's no I in team, and I'm in this for myself, but I get nowhere unless the team wins. And you can just feel the escalating tension. Again, no music required. De Niro, classic form as he is, he has to exhibit the lesson overall. And then once he does, he proceeds to batter one of the members with his baseball bat. It's a shockingly violent scene, brilliantly directed by Brian De Palma, of course. That classic way of escalating tension and then showcasing the violence. De Niro at his absolute finest, and how much of a compelling actor and how much he can draw you to the screen. And it's a fantastic performance from De Niro as Al Capone. And of course, when talking about Untouchables, we also have to mention the iconic and recently passed Sean Connery in the role as Jimmy Malone, the partner and very much mentor of Elliot Ness, every bit as charismatic and important a presence as Malone. From their first encounter, he really shows Elliot Ness the real way to take down Capone, the lessons of the streets, where the corrupt forces are within all of the city, and Connery exudes all of his persona as a toughened Malone who will go to the extremes that Ness won't to begin with. The dynamic between Elliot and Malone is fantastic, very much in the early parts of the movie. Malone teaches him all of the important lessons, and of course that builds to the film's iconic scene when Malone takes Ness to the church, outlining what it takes to defeat Capone, and he speaks the immortal lines, "You want to get Capone? Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun, he sends one of your men to the hospital, you send one of his men to the morgue. That's the Chicago way, and that's how you get a Capone." Such an immortal classic line that really has transcended with audiences over the years, connecting themselves so much with this movie. So typical of Sean Connery's performance and delivery, despite the fact that people mock about the fact that he's Irish with his Scottish accent, of course, but despite that, it's still an incredible, iconic performance from Sean Connery in a role. And also, we have to mention the incredible musical score from legendary musical composer Ennio Morricone, who also sadly recently passed away. So many great scores that he's provided throughout his career, and the music in this movie does so much in elevating it, and we get some terrific sequences. We have the incredible stomping, whistling theme of the opening credits sequence, so fantastic. We have the scene with the Untouchables riding out on horseback, as I mentioned before, and then we get the two death scenes, for which I won't spoil, but Morricone's music evokes so much of the pathos and sadness, making these scenes so impactful. It's a brilliant musical score, and I think among the best throughout the overall career of Ennio Morricone. So as of usual with this movie review series, we already know the score, which is 10 out of 10, so we'll move on to the movie's overall release. And on a budget of 25 million, the film went on to gross over 106.2 million at the box office, becoming one of the biggest commercial successes of that year of 1987. It gained massive critical acclaim, and it was nominated for 4 Oscars, and the most significant, of course, was for Sean Connery finally winning his Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. And over the years, Untouchables has gone on to gain such a critical reference and classic iconic status amongst the years, amongst both critics and movie audiences, and it's easy to understand why, because it's such a brilliantly directed film, so many great beats in terms of the music and the editing and the actors' performances overall. And as I mentioned before, it's one of those films that really is so comprehensive in all elements of movie making, and without doubt one of the greatest gangster movies, not only of the 1980s but also of all time, with a dream cast and a masterful director in Brian De Palma at the peak of his game. So when we combine all of these elements together along with the movie's musical score, that's why I deem The Untouchables one of the greatest films of all time, and a movie that fully deserves a 10 out of 10 rating. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings and reviews on The Untouchables, a true gangster classic. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you've seen the movie, how do you think it ranks in the overall hierarchy in terms of great gangster movies? If you have yet to see the movie, then I highly recommend it, and once you do, then come back to this review and let me know what you think about it in the overall comments. If you have any other films that you feel are 10 out of 10 or indeed underrated and deserve more praise, let me know in the comments, and if I've seen a movie, then I will provide an overall review of it as well. Please also hit and like those subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content and movie reviews like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.